Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Z-Man Monday where I take a bait off the bait wall and we talk about what it is, how I fish it, where I fish it, and what type of tackle I use with it. So today, it's going to be pretty simple because this is not going to be a bait that you're really going to rig in a lot of different ways. Like, you're not going to fish it on a Carolina rig or a Texas rig or a shaky head or anything like that. It's pretty much its own bait and you rig it just pretty much one way. So, but it is super revolutionary. I think it's a very, very well thought out and well designed bait and very relevant to today's technology and all, the techniques that are really dominating nowadays with forward-facing sonar. And so today, what we're gonna do is talk about the new ZMan graph shads. This is a new bait that was introduced this year at ICAST in July that ZMan came out with. And man, these guys, the last couple of years, they've really been introducing baits that are very, very well thought out. And they really fine-tune these different presentations. And this one, the graph shads, is no different. This is a really special bait. Essentially, it is a bait that is specifically designed for forward-facing sonar type of fishing, where you're strolling or Demiki fishing or Ned Miki, whatever you want to call it, where you're throwing a jig head minnow. That's where the graph shads, that's what they had in mind when they designed the graph shads. But the special thing about the graph shads is that it approaches and solves a problem that I've always had with the jig head minnow setup, which is they just didn't look seamless to me. They didn't look super realistic as they could, because usually the jig heads that are on the market and the baits, they're not seamless. Whether the color of the jig head is different than the bait itself, or the shape of the jig head just doesn't seamlessly transition into the body of the soft plastic or Elastec bait that you're using. They just didn't look right. I felt like there was a lot of room for improvement with the different jig head and minnow bait combinations. And so this is actually something that before I found out that they were designing the graph shads, I was urging them. I'm like, we need to design something that essentially looks exactly like a shad, like a minnow. And that's exactly what they did, and so essentially the graph shads, as you can see here, very, very realistic design, very realistic head, and the head to body transition is very seamless, very realistic. And there's, it just looks more real than anything else that you see out there in the jig head and minnow combination. But there's other things that make this a really, really neat design. First off, ZMan recognized that being able to see your bait on forward-facing sonar is a huge part of this overall technique. So there's two different things that are very important to remember about forward-facing sonar and the baits that show up on that technology. Number one, the more dense the material is, the better it's going to show up. So the harder the material is, the better it's going to show up. But also, air is going to show up as well. So like air pockets. So not only did they incorporate the jig head and design it so it would actually catch that sonar signal and go back to that unit, but also they designed, you can't really see it in there, but there's a little air chamber in the back here, so that allows the air to show up on your FFS as well. So so both of those things really enhance your ability to see this bait out at greater distances and depths. So that's a really important thing too. The next thing that I thought was absolutely just such a cool design feature is that one of the issues that people have with a jig head minnow is that the line tie being on the top, the problem is that sometimes your knot will be at an angle where you're not getting the right action out of that bait. It might be, moved over to the side or something, or too far forward. So ZMan, to combat that issue, they created a line through system. The line goes through, goes to the bottom here, and the line tie is at the bottom of the bait. You can see here, I've got a little bit of my tag in there. So the line goes through and then you tie it right here. And that ensures, and there's like a little spot where the knot actually is able to kind of rest perfectly before, the line goes through that channel. That ensures that the line tie is always in the perfect position. So you always get the same exact action out of this bait every single time you throw it, and you never have to worry about your not being over to the side or just not being right. So that is a really, really cool design feature. Other than that, it's just a beautiful, very lifelike shad profile. The back of the body is made of Elastec, and it actually comes with one already rigged and then a spare. Okay. And it comes in 3 different sizes. You got 3/16 ounce, 1/4 ounce, and a 3/8 ounce. So those are very, very, popular sizes for this type of technique to get it down to the fish, but also have a very realistic, action in the water. So I've actually only got to fish it for 1 day so far since I've been back from St. Jude and actually get out of the water. But it has a really, really good action. I love the tail on this thing. It's kind of got this like, I don't even know what you call it. But it's almost like it's got like a stick style tail with that, that little fin accent on the top. It really looks good in the water. It has a ton of action when you want it to have action, and it's real subtle when you want it to be subtle. So overall, if you're looking for a bait that is more realistic and something that, maybe the fish are really, really pressured with the jig head minnow setups that are so popular nowadays, this is going to be one that you're going to be able to get some extra bites on when they're hyper focused on, realistic baits. So as far as the scenarios I'm gonna be fishing this, just pretty much anywhere where you've got suspended fish that are chasing bait fish. You can see them on forward-facing sonar, or even just on regular 2D sonar below the boat. This is gonna be a great bait for all those scenarios. One other thing that I've found with this bait is it actually falls a lot faster. It gets down to those fish a lot faster than other jig head minnows. I think it's just because it's so streamlined. There's no it's just such an even transition from head to body. Other baits that you can see the transition from jig head to the minnow body, I think there's more drag there because there's more surface area to create drag, and so they just don't get down to those fish as quick. But this gets down there fast, which I love, because I think one of the biggest struggles that I have with forward-facing sonar techniques is seeing the fish and then getting the bait to them very quickly, especially if they're down like 10 plus feet. You need to get that bait down to them before they swim out of the beam. So as far as the tackle that I fish this on, I use it on spinning gear. You can use it on bait casting gear. I use a 610 medium heavy Versa series rod from Fitzgerald spinning rod, and just a regular 3,000 size spinning reel or 4,000 size spinning reel. And I like to use, just like all my spinning gear, I use a main line of like 15 to 20 pound test Seagar Smackdown. And then I use, anywhere from, I don't get as super light line as some anglers get. You can go down from, you can use 6 pound test all the way up to like 12 pound test. I think that range of line sizes are gonna work really, really well with this. But yeah, this is just another really good addition to your arsenal for forward-facing sonar, regardless of how you feel about it. If you go out there and you like fishing forward-facing sonar, this is a bait that you have to have in your tackle box. Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about it and fish it even more. And I'll report back to you guys as I learn more about this bait. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about the graph shads or anything else a Z-Man related, drop a comment below. Hopefully you enjoyed this Z-Man Monday. Other than that, make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water. Trust the process.